With the launch of the third generation AMD EPYC server processors, codename Milan, maybe the biggest news is that Intel looks like they've got a path to the future. I'm Stephen Foskett, and this is the Gestalt IT Checksum. AMD introduced the third generation of its EPYC server CPU platform this week, and it brings everything you would expect from a next generation CPU. It's faster, more power efficient, and more cores. In fact, AMD looks like Milan will extend their leadership into the data center. So, why do I think this isn't bad news for Intel? Well, simply put, it's not a big upgrade. Frankly, apart from offering more cores and more clock and more speed, there's not a lot to love about the third generation AMD EPYC CPUs that you didn't love about the second generation. In fact, the third generation launch is a little bit lacking on the low end, and AMD is going to continue shipping their second generation parts into these lucrative mass markets. What does this mean for Intel? Well, quite simply, it gives Intel an open door to not lose the data center after all. With Intel's alleged Ice Lake processors still not announced, many wags, including yours truly, expected that AMD was really going to hit it out of the park with their third generation server CPUs. Instead, we got pretty much the upgrade we thought we might based on Ryzen 3 on the desktop. In other words, everything's 15 to 20% faster than it used to be, and there are modest bumps in clock speed and a few more cores here and there. But overall, it's not really much of an upgrade. There aren't more external I/O channels or any other really exciting gains to be had on the server space. Effectively, it's a modest speed bump to the EPYC that we already know and pretty much loved. One of the interesting aspects, too, is that these things don't come cheap. Rather than selling themselves short like they had been, AMD is asking top dollar for the EPYC server CPUs. Of course, no one knows what big cloud providers and ISVs are really paying for their CPUs, but AMD isn't coming in here with a cheap part after all. It's really unlikely that Intel is going to announce something really game-changing here in whenever it is they get around to launching Ice Lake. In fact, it's likely to be a modest performance upgrade over the previous processors in the Xeon Scalable line. But that being said, AMD's super modest upgrade for their third generation EPYC CPUs gives Intel the chance to actually make some news here. Intel can announce some more attractive low-end CPUs. They can announce something that does a lot with clock speed. They can even maybe match AMD on the core count front, at least for the vast bulk of the server CPU market. And what that means is that we might see a much, much tighter race between Intel and AMD than we expected. Remember, the new Intel CPUs are likely to bring PCIe Gen 4 along with them, just like AMD has offered in the last couple of upgrades for their server CPUs. Where the story really gets interesting is the next generation. Everybody expects that both AMD and Intel are going to have a major performance upgrade in store for 2022. This next generation platform is likely to bring PCIe Gen 5 and CXL interconnect, and it will also see Intel able to completely redesign and re-engineer their CPU platforms to match the best that AMD has to offer. This is actually a pretty exciting time and a pretty exciting announcement simply because it means that we've got a horse race in the data center, especially when it comes to server CPUs, but also the platforms that they're running on. For that reason, I am not actually all that bullish on AMD as a result of their Milan announcement. I had hoped that they would introduce something much, much more compelling. Instead, it looks like they're setting themselves up to be neck and neck with Intel. And frankly, neck and neck with Intel is not a great place for anyone to be. This 800-pound gorilla can bring manufacturing and marketing expertise to the table that no one can match. For that reason, I think that the AMD Milan announcement was actually better news for Intel than it was for AMD. If you agree or disagree, please come to gestaltit.com and leave a comment on this post or leave a comment on our YouTube channel. You can find more episodes of the Checksum and the Tomversations on gestaltit.com or youtube.com/gestaltitvideo. I'm Stephen Foskett. You can find me on Twitter at @sfoskett, and you can find more writings and commentary of mine at gestaltit.com. Thanks for joining us today.